y'all doing this evening? What a thing on the thing. Get all the way down. How y'all doing this evening? Welcome to the BroDiallo broadcast. Of course, I'm BroDiallo. That's not right. Ugh. This thing. Oops. Think I'd handle that shit ahead of time. Anyway, welcome to the BroDiallo broadcast. I'm going to try to get to the Q&A as quickly as possible because a lot of people talking mad, reckless. I want to see if y'all gonna come say that to my face. People mad about my position and what I articulated and what I was asserting last Monday. And I've been hearing from people been inboxing me, people been sending me their articles and their research, and everybody got something to say. So I'm going to open up as quickly as possible because last week it was like a half an hour after the show was to conclude, and I opened things up and I had all the people, and it was just I acknowledge I am not a perfect man, so I definitely want to get to the Q&A and open the line up for questions, comments, and criticisms. And we can talk about tonight, or we can talk about last week and our discussion on liberalism and conservatism and in context of Western politics. Because I still stand on what I say. And nobody want to deal with any basic definitions. Nobody want to deal with history. Everybody want to deal with media propaganda. And people think that, sometimes propaganda tries to get you to think and accept something. But a lot of times in your rejection of propaganda, just because you reject the propaganda don't mean you arrive at the right position. Propaganda can push and pull. Propaganda can push and propaganda can pull. And some of y'all who have been pushed by propaganda think you're immune to propaganda. And as I say all the time, the people who are most vulnerable to propaganda are the people who think that they have a level or grasp of the propaganda. So anyway, they got Diddy, y'all. They done ran up in the feds, then ran up in Diddy's crib. And this is different for me. This is the first time I've seen an icon. And I don't say it's icon, it's icon. I put an extra O in icon because most of these people y'all call iconic or icon, Nick. So usually when y'all say icon, I just throw an extra O in there and I say icon because most of them are coons, most of these people. And it's a few icons that's been self-exposing. So they done ran up in Diddy and all that business. But one thing I was looking for, one thing I was listening for, one thing I was watching for is for somebody, and y'all ain't done it yet. Y'all not on y'all jobs. Where is the talk of Diddy was trying to create an independent black media empire? Diddy was making moves. Diddy was going up against the system. Diddy was about to expose the real truth. Diddy was about to do a Dr. Sebi documentary. Diddy was about to expose to the world that we're the real Hebrews. Diddy was about to expose to the world that we are the true indigenous Native Americans, Morris, 12th tribe. Where's the rhetoric? He was about to buy CNN. He was about to buy Netflix. Where is the rhetoric? Where is it? Y'all, wow. Like, this is a world I'm in a strange place that an icon with some money, a black icon, runs afoul of his former paymasters, runs afoul of the very system he promoted, very system he advocated, very system he rose up and thrived in. But when a black person gets their Negro wake-up call, now I'm going to say Negro to be polite, because I'm not Paul Mooney. May he rest in peace. Get his N-word wake-up call. And all the sycophants, what did Diddy? Because Diddy followed the formula. He made money and he flaunted the money. Vote or die. All this weird, corny shit that icons do. So I don't know. Oh, there you go. There it is. Thank you, the infamous. Because Diddy is accused of being moist, effeminate, or as somebody called me, accused of being zesty. Now I understand, because the kind of idiots that talk that whole grand conspiracy bullshit every time a prominent Negro, every time a class enemy get their Negro wake-up call, their N-word wake-up call. But you got to be staunchly heterosexual and preferably misogynistic too. Now I get it. That's why. Thank you for that clarification, because I was missing something. And normally I get so comfortable, man. I'll go and put on a comfortable pair of slippers, put on my house sweater. See, this isn't a house sweater. I wouldn't do that to y'all. But I got some cardigans that are all tattered and ripped and holes in the elbows. I go put on one of my comfortable house cardigans. See, this is my own screen. This is my styling on them cardigans. I only save the nicest cardigans for when I go live. But I go put on one of my tattered, old, raggedy, comfortable cardigans. And I put and get me a nice cup of tea or hot chocolate and sit back and watch all these crazy motherfuckers sit here and talk about all these conspiracies. And talk about all these conspiracies, why they taking down Bill Cosby, R. Kelly, Mike Tyson, Michael Jordan. And some of y'all young, y'all don't remember when Michael Jordan, and they were accusing him of gambling, and they were talking about how the Illuminati took out his father, and even Michael Jordan, Mike Tyson, and the Michaels, Kobe, and his accusations. Every time some prominent Negro that wouldn't spit on you that if you was on fire, some Negro who made it, some Negro who's up there with them instead of down here with us, whenever they run afoul the very system they embraced, and y'all would come up with all these things because why? Because y'all live vicariously through them. And you think to yourself, if they can take down Bill Cosby, when I become a multimillionaire, they might come after me. So me in my impoverished state, my working class state, I should fight for the people who don't fight for me. And you don't even recognize, you think when they fight for you, you don't even recognize when they fighting against you or fighting for you, because you don't even understand where you stand. So now it's been clarified, because I asked the question, and ask and ye shall receive. I wanted to know, like, where are the conspiratorials? Where are the stories? Where's the hype about why the man chose to take down our brother Diddy? Because remember, Diddy was doing a love movement and all that mess. Remember when they were coming for Dr. Fubar was breaching the terms and conditions of his professional licensure, and they called Dr. Fubar back to Philly to stand before the board and say, we're going to revoke your license. And Dr. Fubar was so mad, he was going to give up on the whole revolution over some white man's paperwork. He was like, I'm moving to Africa and I'm giving up on the struggle because the white man's taking away my credentials. And I'd love the transcript from that meeting. I'm sure he went in there and got butt naked and said, what, boss? What I do? I went too far, boss? And they were like, yeah, you went a bit too far, Dr. Fubar. And if you want to remain Dr. Fubar, you want to keep this paperwork, reel it in a little bit, reel it in just a little bit. And he was like, fine, I'll start talking about chocolate bunnies. I'll get off the gays and I'll just talk about snow bunnies. Can I talk about snow bunnies? And the board was like, yeah, you know, our culture is misogynistic, so yeah, you can attack white women. We don't care nothing about our women no more. You know, so that's what I think. But anyway, Diddy ain't getting that love. I know Diddy got to be hurt. Diddy was like every other prominent Negro to get into some trouble, the streets start talking. But I forgot, you don't have to be heterosexual. You just have to present heterosexual. You can be sexual predator. People were making an excuse for Cosby. And that's kind of why R. Kelly fell off. Everybody was like, they trying to take down R. Kelly. Them girls knew what they was doing. They was fast girls. And then R. Kelly's male victim came out in the trial. And it's found R. Kelly was targeting young men. And a lot of people got quiet, I guess. Sometimes the wrong thing can lead you to the right conclusion. So the homophobia of these delusional brothers leads them to not support people they shouldn't have been supporting in the first place. I guess I'm taking what I'm getting. I'm taking what I'm getting. So I do suspect that if all of Diddy's alleged victims and he was targeting for the same level of exploitation and predation, if it was all women, if it was just a bunch of Cassies on the wall, a bunch of racially ambiguous young ladies on the wall, I guess y'all would be talking about how they trying to take down a great black man. But since his victims were also male and he was a feminine or bisexual, I don't know what you call it. It's predatory. It ain't really sexual. Sexual predation isn't really sexual, but that's a whole nother discussion. But thank you so much. I appreciate that. You ain't started nothing. I was curious, dropping that knowledge. I don't know everything. But that's why I did it. But I'm still waiting. It might be. Or LGBTQ community. Y'all can come up and say he was gonna lead our community. I don't know. That shit was wild. That's the only thing that stands out about this whole case, because I got so sick of y'all. Some of y'all still think Bill Cosby was victimized. Bill Cosby was, and that's my main thing. Anytime someone has been taken down or targeted, I always ask yourself, what threat did they pose? Because I, believe you me, ain't nothing you can tell me about the system, the man, the intelligence agencies, the courts, the prosecutors, the investigators, FBI, CIA, ATF, DEA, big guns for pay. Ain't nothing you can tell me about none of these governing agencies that I won't believe. I don't think anything's above or beyond them. I believe they will frame, they will upload content to your computer, they will stash drugs on you, they will lie. I put nothing past them. But I have to at least say, well, for what reason? What was their motivation? Evil for evil's sake? So I'll believe it. So I'm not sitting here saying justice shall be done. But Bill Cosby was an asset to them. R. Kelly was an asset to them. Meek Mill continues to prove himself to be an asset to the oppressors. And y'all be putting them up there with people like Asada, Pete O'Neill, Mumia, Leonard Peltier. Y'all act like every prisoner ain't political. Well, all prisoners are political, but every prisoner ain't a political prisoner, even though all prisoners are part of a political game. That's all I got to say. That's all I got to say. Anyway, welcome to the BroDiallo broadcast. Welcome. Oh, wow. Let me stop looking at the comments. Ain't nothing wrong with Meek Mill, I guess. But when Meek Mill was locked up, y'all don't remember that Free Meek movement? Y'all forget so easy. Y'all forget so easy. The whole Free Meek movement, and everybody was in the street holding them Free Meek Mill signs. Jesus. And they were going after that judge, and they wanted that woman disbarred. And Meek Mill was, and then justice for Meek Mill, and then they wanted that judge disbarred. I'll show. Yeah, why y'all got such short memory spans? Y'all remember this? And he came out in this 2019. I'm extremely grateful for the long legal battle, and people was in the streets, and Rock Nation was going to do prison reform, and Meek blah, 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 blah. And then the day Meek got out of jail, the day Meek came home, did he come to the people? Did he come to the streets? He went on a podcast and was like, I don't give shit to my family. I don't owe nobody nothing. My money is mine. We the dream chasers. We get money. We got diamonds and golds and racks on racks on racks. And fuck all you poor motherfuckers. And that's the same town they've been holding. You had a Free Meek Mally. And that's the same place that locked Mumia up. Then hold Mumia for all these years. And Meek, every time you look up, Meek's on a yacht with some off-brand white dudes hugged up on yachts. He's at Diddy yacht party and he's living high on the hog. And we fight for people. We fought for him. And my only rule is if I can't be up with you, I'm not going to be down with you. I'm not like Brandy. I ain't trying to be down with you if I can't be up with you. And Meek Mill was talking, and right after me, we had the Black Lives and had all these struggles. And he's up there with the Koch brothers. Y'all don't pay attention to that, though. And I guess they know black folks don't play. And talking about prison reforms for right wingers, Rock Nation, uniting with the alt-right, Rock Nation, and rock politics, and then going good with the NFL. Y'all just don't connect the dots, huh? For all the conspiracy, that's the weirdest shit. Y'all look at conspiracies with warlords, I mean wizards and warlocks and cloaks, Bohemian Grove and Illuminati hand signals and shit, and Illuminati handshakes, alien reptilian overlords. But y'all don't look at just the mundane conspiracy, the basic economic conspiracies, the capitalist conspiracies. Why y'all be looking at supernatural shit? Oh, let me take you off, Max. And I ain't nothing against you personal, Max. I'm just saying, Meek was on parole, and I'm not justifying, I'm not arguing on behalf of the judicial system. I'm not saying the judicial system is not wrong. I, in fact, say the opposite. The judicial system is unjust, illegitimate. In fact, the only law I think a black person, we know that Kwabena. Yeah. Making murder music, making a materialistic anti-African propaganda. At the same time, you're going to be with prison reform. But what y'all miss is that they were rocking with the Koch brothers and the Heritage Foundation for prison reform. And what they really wanted for prison reform was prison privatization and limited corporate criminals. They wanted to limit the penalties and investigations in the budget for corporate crimes, for companies that dump pollutants in the atmosphere, tax evasion, offshoring. And what did the right wing funded prison justice do? They went in and got rid of all the IRS investigators and all the IRS prosecutions of high level financial crimes, high level money laundering. But they could still come after nickel and dime wage workers. They didn't get rid of them. And y'all thought Rock Nations, and remember 20, 30 years ago, remember when Russell Simmons and the Rockefeller drug laws, and he raised all that money and all that hooping and holler, the Rockefeller drug laws. My bad. For the Rockefeller drug laws. But y'all don't hear me though. Like I said, y'all rallied and say, oh, they trying to take down Meek Mill. They gonna take down Meek Mill because he ain't gonna make it to Diddy's pool party in time. And a black Philadelphia took to the streets and said, free Meek, and got Meek out of jail in time for Diddy's pool party. Man, y'all some weirdos. Not y'all, but y'all, you know who hit dogs holler. But like I said, what was I saying? I didn't even want to run down the T on Meek. Meek is quite a pretty scummy guy. And my problem is when people don't recognize and think a scummy guy as a hero or a neutral figure. What was I saying? Just these celebrities, they get in trouble and turn black. They just had a movie with Shirley Chisholm. I don't like Shirley Chisholm. I don't like nobody. They about to resurrect Shirley Chisholm. And let me tell you something about Shirley Chisholm. In that day, Shirley Chisholm was running for president. And her main thing, and black folks was like, right on, we got a black woman running for president. And she said to the whole black community, I'm not running to be a black president. I'm running to be president of all America. She was a liberal integrationist. She was not a black radical. And I'm pretty sure she was Obama. She would have been no more radical, no more progressive than Obama. That's my speculation. But she didn't go black until it was 100% confirmed that she didn't have the numbers or the votes. But I digress. I'll let y'all have y'all heroes. I'll let y'all have y'all heroes. But I know if I ever want to become some type of scumbag, criminal, scammer, if I ever get rich and I do some scummy race traitor, coonish business, and I ally with the enemies of my people for my personal enrichment, and then the system come down on me, I know y'all gonna back me up irregardless. As long as I don't, as long as I don't go, as long as I'm not moist, I guess that's some weird shit. Now I'm like, maybe y'all should. Don't discriminate against Diddy. Where are you conspiratorial cats at? Red pills and blue pills. Yeah, I heard that shit about brother Polite. They said it about Polite. Oh, they trying to take Polite down. I had a cousin of mine. It's like, I made $3,500 with Polite. He's going to excuse praying sexual predation, $3,500. What did Saul Williams say? Black folks, we not free, we cheap. So I digress. We ain't here to talk about that. I had a question and it got answered. Thank you. I asked and I did receive. Now I know why. You know, and what did Dr. Clark say? If you go over there, stay over there. I don't think any black person who gets their N-word wake-up call should expect massive support for black people. Even if you're like, it's the principality. Listen, if it's on principle, there's enough black people suffering grave injustice at the hands of the criminal justice system. You take your pick. It's like a box of chocolate. It's a whole variety. If you want to speak up for judicial overreach, judicial hounding, suppression, whatever the criminal justice systems and its very agencies get up to, and you want to speak and stand against it, there are black people who are worthy of our support, worthy of our sympathy, worthy of our acknowledgement. So we can stand to turn away from a few of them. But that's just me. That's just me. I tell y'all all the time, just like y'all cellular provider, my solidarity and support comes with terms and conditions. I don't care what you're going through at the hands of this system. If you want me to hold real solidarity to you, I don't believe in unity for unity's sake. That's worthless. Anyway, moving on. Speaking of celebrities, I'm going to be talking about, because tonight I'm talking about simple solutions simple, execution impossible, in the context of Black Revolution. And I'm talking about what I've read through history, observation, and my own engagement. Now you spreading slander, quabana, saying I be eating them expensive peanut butter cups. They're not that expensive, number one. Number two, they're currently on sale. All Justin's products are currently on sale. I just ran to the store because ain't nothing my life loves better than to see me at my desk doing something and asking me for something. I could be laid up doing nothing, staring at the ceiling. I could be sitting at the computer playing a video game, doing nothing. And it's like nobody says nothing to me. The moment I sit at my desk and she see me working, trying to do something, trying to get goals accomplished, she come and ask me for something. So anyway, just as I was sitting down here tonight, and she was like, I need you to make a run for me. Make a run to the stove. And so I had to make a run to the stove, but I wasn't mad because I'm happy to do for my significant other. But more importantly, I wasn't mad because all the Justin's products are on sale. 3 for $5. No, not 2 for $4. They're 3 for $5. I don't know where you be going. I don't know where you shop at, but at Whole Foods, they 3 for $5. Anyway, I digress. Let's get to the topic because I want to open things up because everybody got an opinion. Everybody, most got something to say. Can I tell you about, since we all friends, We all family. I had a weird dream. And I told my wife about it and she didn't respond. She didn't say anything, but this is a vivid dream. I had a dream that Ice-T did a cover of Houdini's Friends. Remember Friends? How many of us have them? Friends, ones we can depend on. Friends, how many of us have them? Friends is a word you use every day, but most of the time we use it in the wrong way. Now you can look the word up again and again, but the dictionary doesn't know the meaning of friends. Loved Houdini. I actually got to meet Ecstasy. I was at Downstate. I was working the night shift. My oldest son, he was a newborn infant. And I was still at that stage where I hated going to work because I would be sitting staring at him all day like, wow, this is crazy. Look what I did. Oh, look what I did as making this child, right? And so I was at work and there was some medical emergency, but it was real chill there because Downstate Medical Center is right across the street from Kings County. And Kings County is a level 1 trauma center. So all the gunshot wounds, the stabbings, and all the acute injuries go to Downstate. And we would get like respiratory distress, cardiac arrest, patients of that nature, but no acute traumas. So it was a pretty chill gig, right? Plus I was in the union on the government payroll. Man, I was ready to sell all the way out. Man, if I could have held on to that job, man, I'd be sitting here be like bootstraps. I'd be a black conservative like Ice Cube. But anyway, didn't keep the job, So now I'm a radical, mad at the system. Anyway, I was there and the paramedics came through the door and Ecstasy was pushing the stretcher. He was working as a ambulance, or what do you call it? A paramedic on the ambulance, right? And I'm like, Jesus Christ, I love New York City. Like I'd be walking down the street, I'd see Freddie Fox. One day I was playing basketball. Yeah, he was in EMS. I was playing basketball in Brooklyn, and the fucking Jungle Brothers came and was like, I got next. And I played basketball with the Jungle. So I'm like, man, I fucking love New York. So Ecstasy comes through pushing a stretcher. This is the 90s. No, early 2000s. The Jungle Brothers thing was in the 90s. And he's like, how you doing? Dap me up. I'm like, hey. And I do this shit every time. And I tell myself the next time I see somebody famous, I'm not going to do this shit. I saw Kid Capri in Oakland, and I do the same shit every time. I tell them who they are. You're Ecstasy. I don't know why the fuck I do that. Oh shit, you Kid Capri. Oh shit, you're Freddie Fox. I don't know why the fuck I do that. I don't know why I do that. That's some corny shit. I don't mean to do it. It's just, what else do you say to somebody famous? I mean, I don't say shit to famous people for being famous. If I don't like you, I don't say shit. I ignore you. But if I see somebody famous I don't like, Stick Man from Dead Prayers, he was a member of the Park Slow Food Co-op, same time I was. And I saw him, and I'd be like, you're Stick Man. And sometimes if they got a sense of humor, they'd be like, oh, me? Really? Thanks. Thanks for reminding me, dumbass. What do you want from me? But anyway, I saw Ecstasy, but I've been a fan from Houdini since the 80s. Houdini Escape, One Love. We used to imitate their dances. If you go look at that One Love dance, One Love, One Love. And I couldn't wait to go to a house party. I sat and watched that One Love video. And then me and my homies did the One Love and we did the spin. That was our signature move. We stole that shit from Houdini. Anyway, I had a dream that Ice-T did a cover of Friends. And then I don't know if you listen to Ice-T. If you don't, what's wrong with you? Go out and get Power. Go out and get the Color soundtrack. Go out and get Ron Pays, right? And you know how sometimes Ice-T would ad-lib at the beginning of the end of his songs? At the end of Friends, it just, the beat fades out. But when in Ice-T's version of Friends, he was ad-libbing at the end of the song. And I was just sitting there asleep. What's the opposite of a nightmare? It can't be. I asked my wife, what's the opposite of a nightmare? And she said a dream. Dream because no, that's just, what's the opposite of nightmare? Like a pleasant dream. I almost not that type of dream, not nocturnal. I mean, a very pleasant, happy dream. Like if it was the real world, you could live with it. So what? Y'all come and see every time I try to share something positive, y'all want to come with the negativity. So what if Ice-T's married to a white woman? What that got to do with anything? His first wife was a woman of color. What you think my second wife gonna be? If that woman up there ever left me, what you think I'm gonna come through with next? Okay, a fairy tale. So I ain't mad at it. I ain't mad at Ice-T and Coco. Listen, like I said, his first wife. That's all I ask of every black person. If you stay loyal the first time, your second time you get a free for all. So I promise you, if my wife ever left me, watch out, white. Where the white women at? I'm not playing. Because then I'd love to, like when my sons have graduations and my sons have weddings and other milestones, and I show up there with a Karen. I show up with a Karen on my arm, boy. I'd be like, you shouldn't have left. You did this, not me. So I ain't mad at Ice-T. I understand what he's doing. That's my same plan. That's how you keep your woman in check. Like, baby, you ever leave me? It's no bunnies. You know, gonna have to be at all the family functions. And we both have very healthy relationships with our sons. So I'm gonna get invited to everything. And I'm gonna show up with the mother-in-law. And I just can't wait for her to walk up to my sons one day and was like, I hope we can be friends. I don't intend to replace your mother, but if you need anything, oh, that would kill my life. Yeah. So all I'm saying is leave Ice-T alone, you bastards. Leave him alone. All I'm saying is that was an extremely pleasant dream. I don't usually share my dreams. I ain't no into deep mystical shit like that. But I listened to the whole song and Ice-T killed it. And then his ad libs at the end of it. It was nice. That was a pleasant dream. Nice dreams. But I digress. Moving on. I thought I'd share something pleasant before because people think I'm all into negativity and ain't no goodness in my life. There's a lot of pleasant things happening over here. Now, what's the vegan version of tuna casserole? Tofu casserole? Seitan casserole? Anyway, now let's get to the unpleasantness because apparently y'all want y'all come for negativity. I try to share something good and positive in my life, something that made me wake up with a smile. And I hate waking up early in the morning. I'm not a morning person, but you know, I woke up with a genuine smile like, oh, that was fresh. I'd like to hear that. And if Ice-T ever does a cover of Friends, you know, I predicted it. The ancestors sent that message to me. And I'd like to believe I played some role in making that happen. Anyway, let's talk about some unpleasantness now. Moving on. Today's broadcast is Revolution, Simple Solution. Solution's simple, but execution is impossible. And what made me think about this is that there's, with all the myriad of problems bombarding African people, it's pretty obvious. Not only is it obvious where many of the problems that are facing us, what the solution is, that we have the means, we have the numbers, the resources, the technologies to correct these problems, but yet we fail. You know, and a lot of things that we were given that were supposed to be solutions to those problems have better, more entrenched our condition of oppression, have uplifted the systems and institutions of white hegemony and capitalism. And more Black people are in utter despair. Some of them don't know it. There are various forms of surrender. And what's really weird is that now things are so fucked up that Black people are looking at surrender and calling it a triumph. Or as Dale Jones said, we lose so much we don't even know what a victory looks like. We don't even know what a victory looks like. Just one example. There's a whole industry of financial literacy, right? And so Black people suffer from poverty. African people across the world, the African continent, rich with resources, yet the people are poor. African people in the United States, y'all so fond of, I don't know how this is a flex. We built this genocidal empire. We laid the economic foundation of the genocidal world power, yet we are still fighting. We haven't been given our reparations. And now, as reparations gets more attention, we've perverted the very concept. We've warped the concept of reparations. But there's a whole segment of the population who's talking about economic literacy. And as I said before about economic literacy, teaching Black people economic literacy is no different than giving recipes to people who are starving. Black people are not poor because we lack economic literacy. Just like starving people aren't poor because they don't know how to properly prepare food. But yet we let a whole people from 19 kilos to Earn Your Leisure to Cuddly Mike and this whole, even Ice Coon. I'm not calling him Ice Cube ever again. That's Ice Coon. I don't know what more Ice Coon got to do to wake y'all up. Ice Coon sticks his thumb in the eye of Black people since he was in the 10th grade. Ice Cube said, I've been making rap dollars since the 10th grade. Yay. And from the moment he started sticking his thumb in our eye, shitting on us and Black dudes love Ice Coon. They love him. And every time I say anything bad about Ice Coon, I get bum rushed. But anyway, so we're impoverished on a world that has a massive amount of abundance. And the problem is not the fact that we don't have enough or there's not enough in the world. The problem is a imbalance in distribution, unjust, warped distribution. And there are societies, there are regions, there are countries, and there are individuals who hoard wealth. The United States hoards wealth and then unjustly distributes that wealth amongst populations who have not earned it, who don't labor. It's not complex. And the simple solution is they've done it before. Simply redistribute and just equitable distribution of the wealth. Now that's a simple solution, and it's been done before and it has worked before. And it's being done in other places in other regions of the world where it works, but a simple solution. And the people who suffer at the bottom tend to take their cues and take their answers from the people at the top. Amos Wilson says, if you want to understand a problem, if you want to understand a persistent problem that exists on a societal scale. So when I say a problem, I don't mean your baby mama won't let you see her kids, even though that is a part of it. I don't mean your leaky faucet. When I say problems on a societal scale, I mean racism, oppression, commodification of healthcare, housing, pollution, climate change, ocean acidification. Whenever you want to look at a real grand problem, you have to look at who benefits from the problem, not who suffers. If you want to understand Zionism, if you want to understand, you will learn very little about Zionism looking at the West Bank and the Gaza Strip, or looking at the displaced Palestinians who've been driven all over the world. If you want to understand Zionism, who profits from Zionism? You would even find out that the day-to-day rank and file citizen of Israel doesn't profit. And people are like, yeah, United States giving all this money to Israel because the Jews control everything. Because and still, literally engaging in medieval Jew baiting, which is the Europeans been doing that. The European monarchs, they control all the media. That's why Candace Owens and Ben Shapiro bumping heads. Anti-Semitism is fucking wild. That's some cracker shit, but you have to look at who's really profiting from it. Because you got black people who really think the United States is loading up payloads of cash and just sending it to Israel because Israel controls the United States. When they say funding for Israel, what does that mean? And let me tell you something. The United States is corrupt. But let me tell you something. If they put money on the dresser, you done provided some services. Just like with Ask Stormy Daniels and Donald Trump. Donald Trump is a racist. Donald Trump is a cheapskate. He's incompetent. He's all those things. But let me tell you something. Before he put money on Stormy Daniels' nightstand, you're going to have to do something for it. So anytime you sitting somewhere saying America's giving out billions of dollars to Israel, and you're not really understanding the role Israel, the services that Israel is rendering to the United States or to American oligarchs or to U.S. multinational corporations industry, you don't understand anything. And you can know every red cent that goes over there. People are good at quoting the numbers. The country of Israel gets more financial support. And if you don't understand how that's connected to all the money Egypt gets, they send billions of dollars to Egypt. Y'all don't say nothing about it. In fact, some of y'all are dumb enough to believe that Israel and Egypt are on the opposite side. Or the Kingdom of Jordan. Or the Saudi Arabians. The Arab oligarchs. If you don't understand anything about the Arab oligarchs, the Islamic oligarchs, and the Zionists and their incestuous relationship, and this ain't even deep shit. I'm not telling you, you ain't got to put on no tinfoil hat. You ain't got to peek behind no curtain. This shit is out there in the open for anybody who cares enough to look. But yet and still, the reasons for poverty and the solutions, the solution to Zionism, simple, but the execution is impossible. And I can go on and on. But the reason, and that's when I've had to switch up. Well, I didn't have to, I just chose to switch up how I engage the struggle, how I make a positive contribution to just aspirations, because you could get a group of people in a room and articulate our common goals. You can articulate our common problems or opposition, who and what we stand against, what we stand for, what we want to achieve, lay out the priorities. Like, even though we got this myriad of problems, we can classify them from top to low priority. You can assess the skills in the room, what everyone has the ability to do, what people, you ain't even forget abilities, what people are into, what people get off on, where you can direct people not just towards what they have the ability to do, but what actually interests them, and find out their passions. And you can lay it all out, give them all the resources, support, and engagement. And then when it's time to just say, okay, here's the blueprint. Here's the plan of action. Here's the step-by-step layout. Here is the protocol. Here are the standards. Here are the principles. And the moment you open that door, after all this is laid out, people walk through that door and just scatter in different directions, as if none of that stuff was established, as if none of it was articulated, as if none of it was put out before them. And then you have people who say, I'm a revolutionary. And they truly believe that revolutionary fervor, revolutionary feelings, revolutionary attitudes are what makes revolution. And they do not acknowledge the unseen, unwritten, that's not documented in the history books, that will never show up in a documentary film about revolution, the unglamorous work of liberation doesn't exist. It doesn't exist. And I can't tell you how many things were laid out beautifully in terms of laying out the solutions and having everybody on deck to execute those solutions. And the moment it comes to execution, when it's time for everybody to take their, what do they call it, their talents. Remember in the Bible where he left each person with their talent. And then he came back and one guy buried his talent, other guy tripled his talent, the other guy quadrupled his talent. When you give people their little nuggets and say, okay, go, shit completely collapses. And this is something I've tried to understand. This is something I try to input a level of resilience into. When I organize, when I build, I try to say you have to plan for lack of a better word, for Menticide. You have to, whenever you're organizing or building with an organization of Black people, because what's most distressful? Many of those same Black people who can't walk into their own communities and independently come together in a formation and execute a plan, carry out an agenda, and sustain agenda over an articulated amount of time. Those same people can walk into a multinational corporation, can walk into a state or federal government building and become a cog and play their role. And whatever discomfort they endure, is Black folks showing up to work, experiencing racism, sexism, homophobia or gender bias, being passed over for promotions, being underpaid, overworked, mocked and belittled, disregarded, and they show up every day, punch in, punch out, punch in, punch out, punch in, punch out. But you show up to a revolutionary organization and you get the rickety chair. I went to the meeting and they had the rickety chair, so I left that group ready to shut that whole shit down. I mean, this happened with Garvey. Garvey had steamships and put in competent pilots. Garvey would put in people who had Black men who worked on the deck of the white man's ship. Black men who were the backbone of the shipping industry, and says, well, you work for the white man and you was just a porter. They'd have you swabbing the deck. They gave you this low-level title. This has happened to me before. They give you this low-level title, low-level pay, and have you doing administrative work. So he said, you come to the Black Star steamship line, I'll make you an admiral. I'll make you a captain. I will make you, as Garvey was fond of saying, I will make you a man of big affairs. And they went from swabbing the deck on the white man's merchant ships to being a captain of a Pan-African, Black-owned, Black-funded, independent Black ship. And all of a sudden, they forget how to fucking navigate a boat. They were saying stories of Black Star steamship captains and crew just going toward the Caribbean and pulling the ship over and just go to land and kick it. Don't take our shit as serious as we take their shit. We don't take our liberation as serious as they take their bureaucracies, their companies, their events. I've seen more Black intellect and more Black talent to go into pulling off some award show for white folks than pulling off liberation for African people. And the higher up in status the Black person goes, the more they are prone to that behavior. And the only time that I do see long-term sustained Black cooperation is around some cult shit. I was in Kansas. Black people at the bottom of the economic rung. Black businesses were faltering. And then there was this one area in Kansas, Wyandotte County, Kansas, this whole strip, all Black owned. Black bakery, Black cleaners, Black auto repair, gas station, Black grocery store, black daycare center, and independent school, whole strip. And they all were color coordinated all together, right? So we started going over there, and they had vegan food. It wasn't a vegan, but it was pork free. And finds out it was owned and controlled by a cult. And all the black people working in those shops were having their labor stolen from them. They weren't paid. All of their proceeds, all of the money that they generated went to the leader, Solomon. And Solomon and his the other members of the higher up, I don't know what the governing structure was, but his cohort, his bodyguards were abusing the members, the children, abusing the children, hoarding the money, and basically the type of shit that was going on in your bakery, your grocery store. And that wasn't happening anywhere else in that region. That level of cooperation, that level of coordination, and that level of control. But it wasn't because of for revolution, it wasn't for liberation, it wasn't to resist the systems and institutions of white hegemony and oppression. It was done because one man stood up and said, I am the living manifestation of Allah. I am God manifest in the flesh. And God told me that I am to lead you to salvation in the promised land. And you would walk in there, and then people would give you the best service with a smile. And it was a cult. And members were being viciously abused, exploited. One of my friends, his older brother was a member of that cult. And one day he showed up to work and they were like, come to the back room. This is your wife. And he was like, oh, this is my wife. We will go to build a family together. And they were like, and this is where you will live, because they owned housing. They owned whole tracts of housing and apartments. And they put him in there, work for free. And then about a year and a half, 2 years later, after they had a child and they'd been living together, his handpicked wife, yes, United Nation of Islam. Okay, you know. United Nation of Islam. Solomon came to him and said, she's no longer your wife. I want her for myself. But you keep the kid. And I'm like, wow. And I'm like, could that level of cooperation and coordination be sustained? And the only thing that brought it down was basically the feds came in because of all the children, underage girls who came up pregnant, and they had a young child. Whenever someone would get sick, they just give them a bunch of enemas. And one young girl had like ovarian or cervical cancer, and they were giving her enemas until she starved to death and died because she couldn't even ingest food towards the end. And they would just give her enemas and never took her to the doctor. And then they just dropped her corpse off outside of one of the regional healthcare centers. And that opened up a whole bottle of worms that they had a lot of sick people and all that shit. And that's what brought it down. If not that, it'd still be there today. Your grocery store, your gas station, your bakery. And they had contracts back then. It's not around anymore. They had Wild Oats was a grocery store I was quite fond of. It's gone now. It was bought out by Whole Foods. But Wild Oats, they used to carry their products in all the health food store, and they'd walk in there and they had a delivery service and a trucking company. And look at what we're able to accomplish within cults. Religious leaders, spiritual leaders, the ministry. But that we can't accomplish through ideology, through basic, secular, common, rational thought. And of course, there are a lot of good people doing a lot of good things on a scale that is commendable. But we have to really look at why things break down in the execution phase. And I ultimately, if I had to just say it, it is menticide, the systematic destruction, ahistorical, anti-analytical, and anti-academic. The fact that we can be mobilized through emotion and feelings more so than rational thoughts and reach rational conclusions. Radical analysis. We have to, because whenever people talk about culture, We know our aesthetic culture. But as the more we start to assert our culture, do it for the culture, the more and more we lose our academic and intellectual culture, our philosophical culture. We don't know who's good and who's bad. We don't know who's for us or against us. We literally on that in 2024, on that I'm rooting for everybody black bullshit. And who's been more plagued by traitors than African people? We've been plagued by traitors. Some of the worst things that happen to us as you comb through all the white FBI, white CIA, the white politicians, the white racists, the grand wizards of the Ku Klux Klan, the neo-Nazis. As you comb through some of the worst tragedies our people have endured, there's a black person in the midst of all that shit, on the side of the enemy, creating an opening, cooperation, putting drugs in the drinks of our freedom fighters so that they can't come stand on their feet to fight when the feds kick in the door. Informing, taking information, false testimony, sitting in court, telling on us. And we have a culture for the culture. Where is the treason? What part of our culture not only articulates how we deal with traitors, but also values and gives emphasis and celebrate us when we holding people accountable for traitors? And we in our culture has this whole no snitching thing. And most of the people who are protected by the no snitching code are traitors, are people who prey on other black people. People who prey on other black people. Where's the no treason code? Where is the no target other blacks? No subverting other black people? No undermining anything that is revolutionary or positive for our people? How do we have a no snitch culture but never cultivated a no treason culture? And just about everybody that's lifted up is engaged in naked, open treason. But here's the thing. There's a couple of things. Let me write this down because I have to circle back to this. Sorry. Here's the thing. Black people, the reason why they don't even recognize that we can be betrayed is the only way to be betrayed, the only way to be undermined, the only way to be stabbed in the back is if there is something. And I'm going to explain. The reason many black people do not acknowledge or can't comprehend traitors is because you have to have standing. You have to be something to be betrayed. So if I wanted to betray the United States has a constitution. It has agendas. It has policies. It has infrastructures and institutions. And those institutions have missions, agendas, goals. So when all those things are established and articulated, then it's very clear to see who is acting in service or in the interest of those goals and in the interest of those institutions and in the interest of the establishment and who goes against it. So when you say Western culture or Western policies or Western economics, now we say black or African, but what the fuck does it mean? What is the black standard? What is the black institution, the black goals? When you generally look at what are black people's goals, it's generally to integrate with and receive our share of white people's shit. Black is a byproduct of white. Black culture is a subculture of the dominant white culture. So we can't identify traitors because we have no standing. We have not established ourselves. And we have all this rhetoric every fucking Kwanzaa, every fucking December 26th, in Nguzo Saba, Kuji Chakalia, Imani, Faith. You got the whole Nguzo Saba. But what the fuck does it mean? And how, and the moment I saw Hallmark cards make a Kwanzaa card, I'm like, psh, Chris Mahana Kwanzaa. It's just another empty fucking holiday. So I can clearly identify traitors of the African people. Local, regional, national, global traitors on in what scale they've betrayed us and how deep their treachery runs. I can do that because I have taken the time to truly identify what are Black people's interests. What speaks to and serves and advances the interests of African people? Who are we? What is due to us? Where do we stand and where do we need to go? And now that that is very clear to me, and people lie, hey, I'm a hater, I'm a Grinch. They say all these things to me because I'm very clear. And they're like, you don't know, like nobody. And most people who are quote unquote successful in this society are traitors. And I am very clear on that. And we collectively need to become clear on that because it's inadequate. I can tell you my shit is inadequate. Just me alone or what I've come up with. It goes further than that. I'm taking it as far as I can. But every Black person of status, every Black person of stature, every Black person of means should wake up in the morning and the first thing that comes to their mind is, I bet not cross African people. I bet not cross my people. Now I can do anything. I can hustle, I can grind, I can get the bag. I can even steal and cheat and rob. But whatever I engage in, if I cross my people, that's it. And right now, every Black person of status, I don't care if it's the local kingpin or the president, Black president of the United States, or the Black vice president of the United States, or the Black first lady, or a Black CEO, or Black Supreme Court justice, or Black sheriff's deputy, or Black chief of police, or Black district attorney. That's the furthest thing from their mind. Black comedian, Black rapper, Black professor, furthest thing from their mind is running afoul of the Black community and the Black masses, when that should be at the forefront. But we, as a people, don't even think we're worthy of such consideration. Candace Owens just lost her job because she pissed off because she didn't show enough solidarity with the Zionist genocide. And so her Jewish employer was like, you're out of here. You got to go. Even though she was really servicing them. I mean, talk about money on the dresser. Candace Owens was a very valuable asset. If I was a right, racist, neo-Nazi, Zionist, genocidal piece of shit, I would keep Candace Owens on the payroll. She banged harder for white nationalism, for white hegemony, capitalism, Christian nationalism. Who banged harder and spoke up more aggressively for it? And not only was she herself a token coon race traitor, she brought Kanye West and she was bringing all these other and got Negroes all over. Oh, I think Candace Owens makes some good points. If you think Candace Owens makes good point, you are also a coon. You got two types of cooning. You got active cooning and cooning by proxy. Active coons, y'all know what that is. But solidarity with a coon makes you a coon. But this is what happens all the time. I'm already hearing it. Candace Owens was out there disrespecting Black people. Talking about George Floyd was a thug, a drug addict. He got what was coming to him. Dissing our ancestors, talking about we don't deserve reparations, and just saying some of the most virile, hateful shit against African people across the globe, and embracing Nick Fuentes, a professed Nazi, sitting across the table with Nazi, going on the Fresh and Fit podcast. Two men of color, a black man on Fresh and Fit, literally is like begging a white guest on their show to use the N-word with a hard ER. And when they was like, say it, please say it. And when this white man said the N-word with a hard ER, Fresh and Fit, they laughing and giggling. And Fresh and Fit aligned with Andrew Tate and these racial realists and these other Nazi motherfuckers. She's in that fucking disgusting soup. And black people could say, nah, a broke clock. Leave that broke clock shit alone. We don't use clocks no more. A broke clock ain't right today. A broke clock is dead. I'm sick of people saying that broke clock shit to justify holding solidarity with scumbag race traitors. But I digress. And so they were like, well, now she lost her job because she didn't support Israel. But when she disrespected black people, she didn't lose her job. That shit's been going on and on and on. You got a ball chaser, and a ball chaser said something and not even anti-Semitic, just says something stupid that annoys white folks. We are the real Hebrews. Or you got a ball chaser who shares something and black people rally around. Or Kanye West. They were like, we're not going to make shoes with Kanye West anymore. And black people like, when Kanye West said slavery is a choice, they made shoes. And I asked black people, what are you saying when you say when they disrespected black people, nothing happened? But when they disrespected Jews, when they disrespected the LGBTQ plus community, when they disrespected the feminists, when they disrespected whatever other established group, but when they disrespected our community, nothing happened. What are you asking for? Do you, number one, do you want those other groups to endure disrespect because we endured it? Or do you want those other groups to use their power and solidarity on our behalf to take action on our behalf? What the fuck are you asking for? Because I can tell you this, I didn't have to get mad when Kanye West lost his shoe contracts and they stopped carrying his music on streaming service, because I stopped fucking with Kanye West more than a decade before that, when he first did those pop-up stores in Los Angeles with the Confederate flag. I was already done with them before white folks was done with them. And if that ain't where we are, we should have been done with these coons long before white folks even found out who they were, because many of them only become famous to white folks because we sanction them. They look at us to determine what's cool, what's hip, what's happening. Talk about it. So all I want is that the main problem is African people, the ideological component, understanding treason, truly understanding what liberation from and independence from and self-determination truly is. Stop being a byproduct, an offshoot of the system and institutions of global white domination. Stop with the militant integrationism. Stop. Most of these movements are militant integrationists. The solutions are clear. The problem breaks down in execution, and all we have to do is refine our thought processes and really determine whether or not it's really something we want, individually and collectively. But here's the rub and what I've observed in terms of our racial esteem. I don't know if you've ever interacted with or cared about someone who had severe low self-esteem. But what you will find is, inevitably, that person with low self-esteem, the more love and concern you show for them, the more they will begin to devalue you. You will notice that people with low self-esteem, we're all clear that they become prey and easy targets for people to prey upon them, to exploit and abuse them. When people have low self-esteem, They tend to look up to abusers. They tend to not be able to understand that they are being exploited and abused. Or even when you get them to understand or see that they're being exploited and abused, they don't really conclude that they are worthy or capable of ending that abuse. And you will notice, like I said, if you start to love and engage with someone who suffers from like very low self-esteem, the more love you show them, they begin to look at you as the absurd one, as the silly one, because I ain't shit. And if you care so much about me, then you either must not be shit or you don't have the understanding or the capability of recognizing shit. So that makes you less than as well. We are less than. So imagine that on a global scale. If you wonder why we keep rallying around people who don't give a fuck about us, why we would march in the street to free Meek Mill and leave, and in that same city, Philadelphia, and leave Mumia locked up. And you ask them people at the Meek Mill rally who Mumia Abu Jamal is, or why we would think that one is more worthy of our attention than another. Why do we think, after being victims of financial warfare, that the solution is financial literacy instead of financial warfare back? Why so much victim blaming and not victimizer blaming? Why we have so many black conservatives, black reactionaries? Why we root for everybody black and don't think we're as worthy as any other group to delineate who's with us and who's against us, to establish, to draw a line in the fucking sand and say, hey, this is our line. You cross it, you out. And these are the, and we think that we are worthy of solidarity. We are worthy of people with abundance of resources to share those resources and support the goals and agendas we lay out. And most people come to us and say, well, forget, they say, I have an agenda for us. And 9 times out of 10, their agenda is allowing us to graft ourselves onto someone else's agenda. Crypto, housing scams, banking, guns. And you look at most of these black leaders, individuals, and organizations, what plans they have for is just putting chocolate coating and a kente cloth over established white agendas and white plans. How do we get a cut of what white folks got on? How do we get in on what? Flip some houses, whatever. No matter how much instability is in their thing. What is true independence? Ideology. We still celebrating kids going off to Harvard. Black kids, black people going off to serve the empire. There was just some black dude, NASA, some dude with locks who's a NASA scientist. And everybody's like, oh, this is wonderful. How so? How so? So, as I've been saying, for the last 7+ years I've been on the air, and I think we have to revisit these ideas. As I've been saying, ideology is the most important thing to determine about any organization or individual. Before you move forward with any action, ideology must be understood, must be established, must be refined, strengthened, reinforced, sustained, critiqued. Because if you don't understand the ideology, it doesn't matter. You could have a black billionaire, you could have all the resources, you could have all the arms, you could have any type of position from CEO to gang leader. It doesn't matter, any position of leadership or authority. If we don't know ideology, what the fuck is it? How is it relevant? We got African leaders on the continent sitting on abundance of resources and the conditions on the ground and the economics on the ground function the same as they did under colonial authorities. We got churches here. I was driving up King Drive from 85th Street, the Chicago State University campus, coming back to Bronzeville. And I'm like, I'm going to count the churches between 85th Street and 35th Street on King Drive, heading towards downtown from the far south side. And I got up to like 80 churches. Before I'm like, I'm going to wreck my car. I can't keep counting this. I'm getting distracted. So I stopped at 80. And that I was like on 85th Street. I don't think I had went 12 blocks. And you know what we need? A reformation. White folks who put a Christianity on us, they at least had, we ain't had a Christian, we need an African reformation for Christianity and Islam. Call it to court for the crimes and corruptions of this religion and really determine we need a reformation. But anyway, my main point is we got a lot of people working on solutions. We got a lot of sincere, competent, capable people working towards solutions. And they're doing good works. I appreciate and respect the work they do. But why the fuck are we in 2023 fighting for the same shit we were fighting in 1923 and even in 1823? There are no new problems and there is no new approaches and no new methods on our side. We have to not only intensify our struggle for Black liberation, we have to refine it. What we're doing now is inadequate to meet the challenge. And what breaks my heart more so than anything is seeing all these dedicated young African people with their time, talent, and resources essentially being squandered. Because even if they just ask yourself, any individual, whether it's Farrakhan or Cuddly Mike, any individual that you respect in this struggle in this community, let's say they fucking achieve everything they lay out to do. What would a world look like if the Nation of Islam goals were fully actualized? What would the world look like if Cuddly Mike were fully actualized and achieved? Or even Claude Anderson or the ADOS? What would the world look like? Would imperialism, colonization, destruction of the planet's ecosystems, from climate change to mass pollution to the melting polar ice caps, women's rights, all the people under theocratic abuse and exploitation, religious abuse and exploitation. Many of their plans, Black people will have enough money to buy more fucking mass manufactured shit. Even though you can look over at white folks and see they got all what you're trying to get and they're fucking miserable and backwards and dysfunctional. So I want to emphasize the necessity in terms of revolution, the solutions and how we carry out those solutions, how we achieve those solutions are as important as I want freedom. That's the solution. How do you go about securing freedom? I want my people to rise up out of poverty. I want to deal with housing. Do you deal with the housing crisis through investment? Through capitalism? Encouraging developers and telling developers they can earn more profit if they redirect their development and their resources this way to earn more profit? Will your cure for the housing crisis strengthen the system of capitalism that invented it, reward the people who destabilize the housing market with more resources to provide? And now I look around and they talk about Slim Thug and these other rapping capitalists building low-income housing, and y'all celebrating. I was raised in low-income housing. Let me tell you something. Some rapper or celebrity talking about building a plot of low-income housing. Every generation or so, they build up low-income housing, slum projects, and then they tear them down and displace the people. And now Black people are getting in on that sick game of commodified housing and exploitation of poor and insecure people with limited resources. And now it's good because now instead of having the HUD housing and instead of having black projects, we're going to have black owned low income housing projects. Okay. In these black banks. Or Harriet Tubman on the $20 bill. They trying to blackify this madness. But anyway, my whole point is things break down in the execution because we focus a lot, and not, I'm saying it's appropriate. We focus a lot on the problems. We focus a lot on the material components of the problems. We focus a lot on solving and addressing and confronting the problems, but we don't give enough attention to the ideology that drives and motivates us to address these problems. We don't refine it. And the problem with doing that is because when you start to do the ideological work, a lot of established cornerstones of our movement, a lot of these leaders and a lot of these organizations will falter. A lot of these organizations that are actually cults, a lot of these black leaders who are actually demagogues will be exposed if we start dealing with ideology and not just with calling the white man the devil and calling out the snow bunnies and calling them out. And that's why we don't do it. If ideology is a scary word, a worldview, social theories, philosophy, an African pan-African philosophy, we need to do that work. I'm still doing that work. I'm not saying I'm there. I'm doing that work. But anyway, is that everything? Our job is not to reconstruct a black version of this white shit. Our job is to deconstruct the white shit and make sure that it cannot reemerge. Black banks, black moguls, black empires. That is not the solution. The solution is creating a world where capitalism and imperialism cannot thrive. Purging that from our mentalities, our cultures, our value systems. Just, equitable distribution of goods, services, and resources. Preservation of the world's ecosystems. The expansion and value of biodiversity. Creating an infrastructure that allows people to cultivate themselves so that they can reach their potential and be of service to others, as opposed to their potential, using their potential, their intellect, their talent, their skills to exploit other people. Fuck businesses when business is predicated on the exploitation of other people's labor and concentrating the wealth generated by other people in your own fucking pocket. What the fuck would that serve, even if it's a black? What the fuck would a black CEO do different than the white CEO? But I digress. I would really like, I'm returning, and I'm saying this and I'm doing this and thinking about these issues because I'm going back to the grassroots and working on more bottom-up grassroots work. And it's just, this is the main thing. The solutions are laid out and clear, and the execution collapses onto itself. And if you ain't had that problem, holla at me and let me know how you've avoided it. Anyway, we're going to open this up for questions, comments, criticisms. Please support the BroDiallo broadcast. Thank you so much to all of my supporters and contributors. I'm here because of you. So if you want to praise my contributors and thank them for the BroDiallo broadcast and book reviews and all the things, you can praise them. Or if you're mad about me being here, then you can blame them. So I don't know whether or not my contributors are going to get praise or blame, but whatever. I'm here because of them, so put it on them. I'm blameless. I'm as innocent as a turtle dove. But I appreciate y'all. I work for y'all. And I'm glad that you see enough value in my efforts, my struggles, and my contributions to continue to support. You can become a Patreon. if you're able to make sustained contributions to the BroDiallo show. If not, you can make a one-time contribution. It is all needed, and it is all sincerely and greatly appreciated. Thank you. And so now we're open for questions, comments, and criticisms. The link to come on live has been put in the chat. So look at the chat, and or you can type in your question, comment, or criticism. I'm sorry that if I missed your question, just retype it, because the feed kind of goes on its own way in its own time. So where are they at though? And I don't duck questions, but sometimes the feed will bump the question and I can't get it. Oh shit. Why y'all do me like this? Okay, Roman, you're live on the BroDiallo show, live and direct. Question, comment, criticism, Roman?
Can you hear me?
Yes, loud and clear.
All right. This was a great show, Diallo. As always, seriously, thank you.
Appreciate it.
You sound pretty stressed, but I want to let you know you are really helping. You are decolonizing minds with every show you make. And one thing you mentioned that I guess, want to hear your thoughts on is this misery that we suffer from. My mom told me a very disturbing thing not too long ago. She said there's never been a black person that she knows that's ever been nice to her. And that to me kind of informs a lot of kind of who she is and how I was kind of raised, which was apart from any and all things black. And I think this misery you talk about, I think it really affects us. You know, like you said, there are people, I think a lot of us are struggling and in crisis and we don't even really know it. I think there needs to be some form of, real education to an extent. Like I think even small things that, we've been touching on, like Egypt. I think this is something we need to really teach people about, because seeing images outside of, especially on the continent, seeing black people, or at least learning about black people who are in, completely removed from anything non-black. You know what I'm saying? Like you're saying, an organization that is completely devoted to blackness. If this makes any sense, just this misery that you speak on, I think it's very touching. I think it's actually really important, and I guess hear where you think we can help this, how we can assuage this misery, because I really think it does hang over black people as a whole.
Well, in terms of, I've never. Well, I'll just try to answer it directly. The path is made by walking. So what I have observed is people who are actively engaged with the issue tend to have a level of contentment and clarity and satisfaction that people who try to avoid or escape the issue don't have. I think that the struggle is a wonderful place, and it has the best quality relationships within working for something that is actually fruitful. Making a positive contribution to just aspirations. And this is scientifically proven. Neurologically, human beings, we are social primates. We are socially dependent and socially oriented primates. So we are, and we are so to that when we see people in pain, it causes us pain. And when we see people having pleasure or joy, it gives us a sense of euphoria and joy. And what has happened in this system, has hijacked our brains. They understand us. They have this mythology that we're inherently selfish. Man is selfish and brutal and short-sighted, and only through strict societal restrictions and controls. But if someone can get up and say, hey, I am making this positive contribution, I am working within my talents and within the limits of my resources and reach to do good in the world, then that will do a lot to alleviate the despair that I think is necessary and healthy. It's not about avoiding stress and misery. It's about processing and comprehending it. And it's just like food. That's part of your diet. What is part of your psychological, social diet? You need to, you when your other systems are healthy, you can digest, process it, extract the nutrients, and expel the waste. It happens physiologically, but it can also happen psychologically. So you see something happening, and you know there's ongoing genocides on every populated landmass. There's so much injustice. That is a reality you shouldn't avoid, but say, hey, what role can I play? What can I do in my own community? What stance can I take? What organization can I make a contribution to? And it doesn't have to be grand. And they know neurologically when you are doing the right thing and doing what's justified, even in miserable conditions, your serotonin levels increase, your stress level, your blood pressure levels will level off. So it's not about avoiding stress, because people who avoid stress and make their whole identity being stress free, don't care, I don't no fucks given, they have sometimes high level stress hormones of people who are wrapped up in the misery. They're just in a state of delusion, but they've suffered from a lot of the physiological problems that come from others. So being honest with yourself, being clear about where you stand, and finding out how to make a positive contribution to what's good in your community, in your life, in your small environment. And as far as saying black people don't do right by me, that's a confession. Whenever you run into a black person that says white people have treated me better or black people have been nice to me, you can pretty much flip that and say, I've never been nice to black people, and I've always treated white people better. And that's what has always been the case, because black people, and we as an oppressed community, when you understand who the oppressed community is and what we've been through, and you navigate and understand that, black people are very receptive. I have positions and views that take me out of alignment with the black masses, but wherever I go, coast to coast, I find community and black people that are receptive and reach out. I've lived in a predominantly black communities all my life. Both of my sons went through one of my sons did, the other one's currently attending predominantly black schools, and it's the most healthy environment. And I have relatives and friends who put their kids in predominantly white environments, and it is inherently intrinsically predatory. So I can't even really, to be honest with you, speak to that, because that's never been my experience with black folks. Even the black folks I don't get along with, I am better and more comfortable and better received amongst black folks who I don't even see eye to eye with than white folks. Like, for example, vegans. I can go a bunch of swine eating, pork rib and lamb shank eating black folks and be fully comfortable and embraced, then go around white vegans and feel off. So I ain't the person to help somebody with that experience, because it's never been my experience.
I hear you. So I guess then, well, I really answered my question. Yeah. I think one last thing I guess I wanted to ask you, or I guess just tell you about it, was not tell you about, but I guess ask, what do you think this whole stop being a victim mentality thing is coming from? Because I hear it in rappers, I hear it just around, like, I'm not going to be a victim, I refuse to be a victim, we're looked at as victims. I hear it a lot, but I want to agree with you. I think we should start looking at the real enemies, the real victimizers.
Right. Yeah, that's all that come from. That don't be a victim is born of a predatory culture. Only predatory cultures maligns victims and victimhood.
Okay.
That's why. So there's no shame in being a victim. The shame lies in the predator. The shame lies with the victimizer.
Well, y'all, you taught a lot today, and I want you to really know that your work is very much appreciated by everyone who watches you and endorses you, gives to you. So just keep going out there, man. This is a really great show, and I think it's really needed.
All right, I appreciate you, Roman. All right, Lim Joseph, you're live on the BroDiallo show. Question, comment, criticism?
Oh man, so much. Can you hear me?
Yep, loud and clear.
Awesome. Appreciate you having me on. As I was watching you, I was listening to you talk about how people can get involved in the activities and the plan is on the table and they're working towards it. And then when it's time to put in that work, it fizzles out per se. And but they all agreed with the plan. They understood that the work was necessary. And so like what is the lack of motivation per se?
Right.
Right. And so much of what you say resonates with me, right? It's like I stay up at nights worrying about the plight of my people, right? The plight of what my own personal people have gone through, and through that anger, I found myself in a lot of the same kind of spaces. I think is maybe what you're describing. I've just
Right.
been watching you for the last maybe couple months and got into the BPM stuff, and I'm just watching, but culture, this whole episode, or that you've been talking about culture, and I truly think it is what we believe. It's ideology is everything, like you're saying, in the sense of it's literally us. Like I'm an idea of myself. I created this idea along the way through my life experiences, recorded on this continuum of memories. And through that, I've extracted all of these understandings, ways to exploit the environment to survive. And then, but that's only possible, and that type of learning is only possible through a group, through a culture, through a social dynamic, right? And so even without language, we're doing this, but eventually the thing we do best is, right, we develop this tool of language, right? And tools, abstracting concept is really what tools are. It's the ability to abstract from one event something that you can use to exploit the present, right? We can adapt in real time. Thus, we can do all this amazing stuff in the environment. We do all the things we do. We got technology now, but in all of that, it's all ideas. We made all of this up, and so we're trying to, and including the idea of meaning. And so we're trying to find meaning in this world that we're living in, that we have quote unquote dominated, that is really just our ideas. And now we're seeking to understand who we are, find happiness in these ideas as if they are intrinsic to us, when they are really just an idea. It's same as we are, just this idea that continues to morph and change as we come across new things. And then I think maybe what you're describing, and like, right, like the people that can become connected heavily with a movement, and then like when it's time to put in that effort, and when like real sacrifice is on the line, sorry, let me my hand up the camera, when real sacrifice is on the line, I think the people were in the movement all along with an idea of kind of the glory that capitalism and this kind of warped ideology that we've come up under, this culture, that this menticide per se, right? That's right. All of that, it's like, for me, it's just ideas, and there are good ones and there are bad ones, and how to
Yeah, I think
please continue,
I
please.
appreciate you pointing out the fact that these are our concepts, and byproducts of our imagination, and we impose meaning and importance to things, and it does come from us. And just as we can create it, we can uncreate it or transform it. I appreciate that, because a lot of people do think, as the world is, it came from on high or some supernatural source, or things just become that way indeliberately, or just by default. So I do appreciate that, and I wish we would pay more attention to that. You really think people think money has some type of magical, divine, otherworldly power?
Well, it's like it's the undefined feeling behind the desire of what it means to have that has that power.
Right.
And but it's not, it's that's what we're at. We believe so often that what we're doing is because of what we're thinking. And I think often you're arguing and I'm arguing that it can be that, and it's important for it to be that. But I think most often what people are doing and what I'm doing and my auto, when I'm on quote unquote autopilot, is it's the desires are what's fueling us. We're great apes. Those great ape desires are always there. We want to, we want to satiate these needs, and we want to feel good about it, right?
No,
And
we're God's image. We're not apes.
yeah, no, yeah, no, man, fallen angels, man.
Right.
So like,
Yeah.
and even now, I'm trying to be lighter on that. Like, I feel like you my brother sometimes. I hear you up here, man. I be dying, man. But like, I let go of a lot of the anger when I started to see. It seems like just confusion. It seems like everyone's just confused, like everyone, including myself. Like, I'm an idea of myself. And like, that means what's important to me is what I make to be important to me. And right. And like, what does all of this mean? Where'd all the magic go? Right. It's very like, how do you compete with a whole history? And I think it was required, right? Like the religions, right? Like, it's like, what else do you do when you don't have language and like lightning and you see lightning for the first time, and your people been freezing for the last like 8 months, and then all the babies are dying, and then like one day, like the oldest dude, like he takes you over the hill and the sun's out and like everyone's warm, and like the old dude's like, it was all for us. I told you. Right?
And I'm like, the prophet.
Yeah, right. Like, what else do you do?
You get a bigger chunk of the mammoth than everybody else.
Right? Even that baby died for a reason. Otherwise, maybe we give up, because this whole brain consciousness thing, man, I got so much. Like, I'm going crazy in my house with so many ideas, right? Like, I'm sure you can hear, right? Like, I don't talk. I
do have the call line is kind of.
I'll let you go, bro. Let you go. Yeah. I'll show back up, baby, man. I'm with you, brother. Like, yeah.
I appreciate the comments. I'm with you all the way, though. So please chime in again, because
I'm with you on all that. Amazing work, brother. All right.
Appreciate you.
Yeah.
Kadir, you live? Question, comment, criticism?
Hey, BroDiallo. Just want to say appreciate all the work that you have been doing. You've been a great impact on me personally, and just kind of in some of my circles, because I don't know, I kind of had to, navigate a lot of hot topics or non-topics that should be topics, in Black circles that, you kind of helped me formulate and articulate, strengthen, or even question some of my own arguments as well. So I really appreciate this show and the work that you've done, as well as Dr. Jared Ball and Skip and even Geechee, y'all. So I just want to say that.
Appreciate it.
But I do have a question about, like, especially within these times, kind of with the previous questions that have been had, or the commentary that's been going on. I see a lot, I think I have an idea why, but like I see a lot of like fatalism, defeatism, the Afro-pessimism that comes up. And then I also think about like when we've had.
I lost you.
Oh. Can you hear me now?
Yeah. You
Okay.
just went out for a second.
All right. So when I think about like previous revolutions, uprisings, and like a lot of people try to attribute it to God or to spirituality or something like that. And then, and then when I think about science and when we see scientific discoveries, quote unquote, it sometimes they have been from like serendipitous findings, like they haven't been like intended. And like I'm trying to pull this all together, but I want to know if you have like any comments or like insights on like how can we get, I guess, some of the slacktivists or some of the critical, which we need to be critical. I'm a critical person, but I'm constructively critical. But like, how can we get? It seems like spirituality seems like sometimes the only way to get a rise out of people. Like, I feel like the people who are more cognitively inclined seem to be a little bit more lazy, or a little bit more not really geared to
um, I guess they're not their message sometimes isn't always influential as it could be, which is
Well,
understandable as well.
the thing that with that is black liberation from going back as far as any of the founding, the beginning of the Mayafa or the Islamic hordes colonizing North Africa. Our struggle has always been one of quality over quantity. You have a lot of organizations that can brag about numbers or how long they've been around, but they don't really point to their track record. So if you talk about slacktivists or people that aren't, your job is not really to, I'm going to tell you something, an unpleasant secret. You can't free slaves. You can only work with the enslaved to get free. So you have to unite. Harriet Tubman, Nat Turner, Jean-Jacques Dessalines realized that. You can't free slaves. You can only work with the enslaved to secure your freedom. So you really can't free anyone. You can only coordinate and work with those who also seek their freedom.
So you're also saying you can't cultivate a desire to be free in them either?
Yes, okay. But you can prepare a meal, but you cannot feed someone and you can't make them digest it. And you can't get them to wipe their behinds after they pass it. So your obligation is to articulate the truth, make the truth readily available. You can even put it in song, poetry, and beautiful harmonies. You can make it as palatable as possible, as beautiful as you can make it if you have those talents. But it is up to the recipient to not only consume and process it and then determine what they will do with it. And if what they determine they will do with it aligns with what you do with the understandings, that's the point where unity and coordination and cooperation comes. It's nothing you should force and nothing you should be trying to measure. It's about the quality of the connections and the relationship, not the amount and the number. Okay. You know, there are revolutions that impacted the lives of billions that started off with barely 24 people.
Yeah, no, I read about it. I get it, and then like the funny humorous side of me is almost like there just needs to be someone like put commentary on people being seduced into revolution, and then
that's what people ask me to do all the time. People come to me and say, well, if you didn't attack religion, if you didn't mock this, if you didn't call out this person, they will come to you and say, well, you should speak in a way that's more seductive, a way that has more popular or mass appeal.
Yeah.
But the way you get somebody, I don't know if you ever had relationship advice from an old school sister, and they say the way you get them is the way you lose them. So if you get them,
I said that.
Right. So if you're telling somebody some grand delusion about revolution, I don't want anybody to join the struggle through any type of misconception, misinterpretation, or misunderstanding. I want people to embrace the struggle with absolute total clarity.
Right.
And not just clarity about what the movement entails, but clarity about who they're working with and where the people they're working with come from.
Yeah.
And it is better to have somebody turn their back on the struggle than to engage the struggle under false pretense.
Yeah.
Quality. You want the quality, not individuals. I'm not even saying these people are quality or not quality. The quality of the connections. Why are you here? What brought you here and what will sustain you once you get here has to be complete and clear.
Right.
And if that means you got 3 or 4 people, then that's plenty. Yeah. The revolution said, where a few are gathered in my name. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah, no, I get that. And it just kind of gets like, and I know I could be doing more. I feel like I could be definitely doing more. My life just isn't in the most.
Well, hey, take a nap, eat your favorite food, and then, sleep on it.
Yeah. It just gets kind of like, I kind of get, when I see people disillusioned and, miserable or basically not even knowing what to do. Like they'll just keep giving capitalism a try.
That's a good place to be in. Not knowing what to do means you can try a lot of different shit. Once you
Right.
know what to do, then you kind of locked in. So not even in a position like this is crazy. What do? Let's try this. Let's try that. Let's reevaluate. Let's reassess and come again.
Hmm. Yeah. I mean, it's easier. Yeah, because I do want to try new stuff because I get bored with shit. Like one
Yeah,
joke that
that's
my
a
partner.
wonderful characteristic to have in a situation like this.
Yeah. Because
You
my
ain't got to
partner
lock
jokes.
in. Anybody that's been doing the same thing and under the same leadership within the same organization for 50 years, you know, and they brag, we've been around. Where you been at?
Yeah.
You know, that's what revolution is. That's what radicalism is. It's scientific. Scientific is testing and retexting, remixing the ingredients and then coming at it again. So you're not doing it wrong. That's the way it's supposed to be. You don't want to stagnate.
Yeah. No.
And you don't want to be locked into something unless you have the answer. We'll only know someone has the answer once we're liberated and the land is liberated. Then be like, oh, that was the answer. But we are making this path as we walk the path. The path isn't necessarily laid out before us always.
Yeah, and I see a lot of people regress, or when you read about previous freedom fighters, they regress because they're constantly making this path, and I feel like sometimes they go into
That's why you have
obscurity
to do, even though it's been corporatized and corrupted, you do have to, again, that's why I talk about the quality of your relationships and your connections.
Yeah.
Because it does get up. But it find out that people that are clear and have clarity in their struggles, they've been able to endure a lot. I mean, just read Mumia Abu's writing. He's been through something we can't even imagine. And the level of power of his voice and clarity, you know, just go back. He's gone, but his name just left me. What's his name? His name just left me. I'm sorry. And I know his nephew. What? Goddamn. Anyway, there have been many African people who've gone through horrendous things and come out with their humanity and sanity intact because of the clarity and understanding of their mission and knowing they did what's right. With that, I'm going to get to my next. They've been waiting for a moment, but I appreciate you, Kadir. Please tune in and holler at us again.
Okay, for sure.
All right, peace, bro. All right, Josh. Been waiting a while. I appreciate you, bro. Question, comment, criticism?
Appreciate you too. Can you hear me?
Yep, clear.
Okay, peace. I think we've been going a little back and forth. I wanted to talk about liberalism and your definition of it and how I understand
I don't have
it.
a definition of it.
Okay, all right. So a definition of
the
liberalism.
definition of it.
The definition of liberalism. Okay, cool. So I wanted to, because there were multiple arguments in here, so I wanted to be clear on what you said. And my comrade, I think we've been going back and forth. He helped me break it down. So let me know if this is fair for your argument. So,
okay.
One, the fundamental principles of liberalism are sound.
Yeah.
Two, the Democratic Party uses the language of liberalism to support its capitalist objectives
and some policies.
Three, we need to oppose Dem party tactics.
Yes.
From the left. And then four, we should be wary of right-wing ideology and stray away from rejecting liberalism and accepting conservative talking points.
Okay. Yes.
Okay, cool. So those are your four. All right. I would push back on points 1 and 4. I think we agree on points 2 and 3. So point 1 being the fundamental principles of liberalism are sound. And point 4 being we should stray away from rejecting liberalism. So I think when you're using the word...
First, define liberalism.
Okay, cool. So liberalism is a totalizing fusion of the economic principles of private property, free markets, things like that.
No.
So you argue, okay, so everyone, Diallo is going to argue that liberalism as a political ideology, which emerged in Europe in like the 14th, 15th, 16th century, right? And then was used in the French Revolution, is about individual liberties and freedoms. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, fantastic. However,
define the term liberal.
Liberal as in the political ideology that emerged in Spain and France to overthrow like the monarchies and things like that. That was classical liberalism. It arrives in England and gets fused with the free market.
No.
Okay.
See,
the term liberal, the earliest terms that we found in our research was 14th century England. It was used.
here's
distinguish.
the thing.
All right, go ahead.
As I articulated,
Sure.
we're speaking in English.
Yes.
There are concepts,
Okay.
social relationships that
Yes.
predate Europe,
Okay.
that existed before Europe.
That's true.
Material and philosophical connections and relationships that predate revolutionary France, the reign of terror,
Absolutely
the
true.
Jacobins.
Yes,
We don't have the language for that, right?
we do. If you return to those societies or whatever, but if you're saying you want to use
Okay.
regardless.
Hold
yes.
on.
Go ahead.
See, you. What
Go.
you're doing?
Go.
What you're doing? It's like economics, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do economics predate capitalism?
Yes, they do.
Do economics predate Western Europe,
Yes, they do.
where there's trade and markets prior to, outside of Europe, in Africa before colonization?
Mm-hmm.
Was there?
Yes,
What was it called?
they had different terms for it.
What? I'm asking you the terms. I know it has different terms, but I don't know what those terms are. Do you?
No, I do not.
Okay.
I don't know all
So
of them. No.
we have to accept
That we're
that
operating on an English language and that we have
we're
to use
working
the
in the
terms that
English
are.
language,
Yes, I
and
get
we
it.
sometimes deal with concepts that are older than English, that predate the existence of any white man.
We agree.
But we have to use the language we comprehend,
Very
the
good.
language of the colonizer,
Mm-hmm.
to describe phenomenon that are beyond the colonizer.
I agree.
And if you were forced
Yes.
to utilize a term
Mm-hmm.
for the nature of the social relationships in pre-colonial Africa,
Mm-hmm.
would you define them as liberal,
No.
conservative,
Communal.
communal? I appreciate, yes, they were communal.
Right. So there's terms, and I don't want to. So
is communalism, where
Yes.
does communalism fall
Mhm.
on the ideological and
it
political?
falls probably to the left of liberalism.
Give
as
me
a-
the characteristics of communalism, which is another English word.
Yeah, that's true. I'm just using an English word that
Give me
feels more
give
accurate.
me the characteristics.
Sharing, egalitarian relations.
Personal autonomy,
Sure.
personal freedom,
The personal, that concept of individual is a
equality of the
is a-
genders.
well, the concept of individual, you're throwing in liberal framing
I
into
didn't
it.
throw in
That's
the
the
word.
problem.
Wait, what? I didn't use that word. But
But
go
you're
on.
shuffling it. You're
I'll
shuffling
let
it in there when you say
But go
personal
ahead, go
autonomy,
ahead.
personal freedom. You're
Go
shuffling
ahead
in liberal framing.
and-
But there you go.
and,
I would agree. We're in agreement
Go ahead
that those are
and-
some
and-
categories that you
but
could
now-
say
but
fall
now
under
I'm gonna sit
liberalism.
back and let you
Mhm.
go off.
Let me rock.
One,
Let me cook.
sound
Okay.
principles of liberalism. What are the
Right.
principles of liberalism?
Okay. So you have
Capitalism.
yes.
Even though capitalism is a liberal principle.
So no, the economic principles necessary for capitalism to flourish are liberal principles, like
As
private
opposed
property,
to what? As
free,
opposed
free
to
markets. Well, private
whoa, whoa,
property,
whoa,
for example,
whoa,
doesn't
whoa,
exist in
whoa,
these communalist
whoa.
societies you're talking about.
Josh.
I don't want to take up too much of your time, Diallo. I don't think you got too much time for
Okay,
this.
go ahead, go off. Capitalism. You're talking
So
about
the ideological. So when Malcolm and then Asada and George Jackson are attacking liberalism, right? They're
Mhm.
talking about the ideological project that is at the base of the U.S. empire, right? Which is capitalism.
Where's conservatism in this?
So, I mean, there's other ways you can go with this. Some would say that conservatism is just a reaction. So it is a reaction to this dominant mainstream liberal thing that we have. Conservatives react to preserve whatever status quo they have, right? So you could say the conservatives, when the liberals in France were fighting, were the ones who wanted to keep the monarchs in power. So conservatives now would be people who want to rule with white nationalism. Wait, hang on, I'll finish.
Free markets.
No, they agree on, because they still follow within this liberal mainstream ideology. However, they agree on, for example, they'll agree on white nationalism as this method of ruling the U.S. society. And that's why we see the conservatives being the white nationalist party.
Can liberals be white nationalists?
Absolutely, absolutely. However, it wouldn't be the dominant strain of what the liberals, or we could say the Democratic Party, but what the liberals operate with now, which would be neocolonialism, right? So that dominant strain of black faces in high places, yes, let women run the military, that kind of thing, right, is not the same as what a conservative would want. Conservatives react to that. Liberalism is the counterinsurgent mechanism that lets them reform and say, okay, keep capitalism, but blah, blah, blah. And why can it reform? Because one of the fundamental principles is individualism. So individuals can achieve. This all is aligned with what you say, by the way. I'm just saying when Malcolm is talking about liberalism, he's specifically referring to that tradition, the ideological project that arrived in England and was adopted by America and is the dominant stream of things.
Wait. From where?
Well, it was adopted from France and Spain and so other.
You said it arrived in England from France. How did it get to France?
They had their revolutions and they had their ideas of liberalism.
And what were the ideas of the French Revolution?
Some of them were liberty. Again, the thing about liberalism is when you look at the philosophers, like the French ones, like Jacques Rousseau, some of them had these principles, and some of them disagreed.
Josh, you're muted.
Some of them had these.
Josh, slow down. Josh,
because we're gonna lose it.
All right, slow down.
All right, man.
Okay.
Yes.
You want to say?
Yes.
Did the French invent liberalism or the liberal principles?
Some of them, yes.
Which ones? Existed nowhere else but until revolutionary France. Name it.
They didn't exist nowhere else until revolutionary France.
What principles? What principles came out of revolutionary France, the reign of terror?
Okay.
Anywhere else in the world prior to that?
Certain forms of civic participation were now allowed in your society. You could petition the government. You could petition the government. That could be one thing we could argue.
Petitioning the government.
Correct. The state.
What does petitioning the government mean?
Well, it meant that people who formerly would have to go through the feudal channels for getting whatever they need could now have another process by which they could do that, and it was more democratic.
The citizens or the community members could engage with the people in authority.
Yes, we agree.
French, before that, Africans who are under some type of hierarchy could not in any way petition the hierarchy or engage the hierarchy with their grievances or desires or demands.
No, not true at all.
You said it didn't happen until revolutionary France.
No, I'm saying that was the tradition of liberalism when you trace its historical origin. I didn't ask you about
the traditions of liberalism.
Well, you said what would I describe in Africa? And that's not what
listen, Josh, listen to my question. My question was, I'm not even, let's relax, because I know liberal and liberalism is a trigger for you. Okay. Now allow me to ask you. What came out of revolutionary France? Because you said liberalism came out of revolutionary France, and I'm asking you what
and Spain. So it looked different in Spain because they were opposing certain religious.
Let me say this.
Figures of the past. So again,
let me say this.
How it got to England? It's a complicated.
Let me say my point is concepts like democracy, liberalism, progressivism. Right? Those things have been claimed and dominated by white people, but it did not originate with white people. They have corrupted it. But I did a whole show talking about this, but liberalism, and the first word out of your mouth is capitalism, where liberalism predates capitalism, does it not? The principles of liberalism that you define as liberal principles predate capitalism.
The liberalism as an ideological project that Malcolm, Asada, and George are attacking is the one that emerged with capitalism. And what they specifically argue, some of the authors I mentioned, is that when it arrived in America, because there was no push from below, revolutionary push from below, because they're a settler colony, right? And because there was no monarchical rule, because they had a liberal, what Gerald Horne calls counter-revolution, it was capitalism and the political things you're talking about fused together when we talk about America. So when Malcolm's talking about liberalism, that's the liberalism he's talking about. That's what I'm saying to you. But yes, if you want to go back to Spain and revolutionary periods or France and revolutionary periods, you could find some liberal thinkers who say the things you say and others who say the complete opposite, which is what the people who studied this were saying. Some say women have rights, others say women are property, right? And these are both considered foundational liberal thinkers. So this is why I'm talking about liberalism as a European project, which is why we probably don't want to be reclaiming it. I think jumping on the revolutionary ideologies like you talk about, claiming revolutionary Pan-Africanism or Black nationalism, anything else as an ideology than trying to reclaim, which you said, your words, or redefine liberalism. That's my
not
point.
trying to redefine it.
Okay. Whatever, reclaim, whatever. But I agree there are principles that existed in our societies and communities before we had words for it that
And
liberals
you said you disagree with number 4.
which was, let me check real quick, because I know we got time. We should be wary of right-wing ideology and stray away from rejecting liberalism. We should reject liberalism for the reasons I mentioned, but I agree, of course, reject the right and fight right-wing ideology. So, yeah. That's
okay. All. Again, I think you missed the whole point of what I was saying.
Okay.
And the problems that emerge from us so casually and flippantly saying, yeah, that's liberal. I don't like liberals and I don't like liberalism and the impact it's having on Black politics and Black understanding. I think you just heard the word liberal and you wanted to go off, but I explained what it meant, what the fundamental concepts of liberalism is, and how liberalism and conservatism can exist in all ideologies and groups, where you can have a liberal approach to, and you can have a revolutionary group or a reactionary group, and within both of those groupings, and I gave example how I could have been defined as a liberal in terms of my position on guns and my position on women, where in other, I could be defined as a conservative, and how those concepts were warped and twisted, and how because these concepts are warped and twisted, we have to re-engage and reassess them, because I'm seeing a lot of people who claim to be revolutionary taking right-wing reactionary positions because of their justified contempt for the Democratic Party and the Democratic Party's warping and claiming of liberalism and liberal positions.
I acknowledge that.
I don't think you heard the discussion.
I don't think it was triggered that way.
I let you go. Allow me to just say this. I don't think you heard any of my positions or arguments, even though you stated them clearly. Mm-hmm. But then, as you say, liberal principles. Mm-hmm. But then you run to capitalism and the Democratic Party.
Well, you listed personal autonomy and certain things that I would argue that language even is feeding into a liberal framing of things. And that's why I mentioned Malcolm, because he was for...
Malcolm was a member of a reactionary conservative organization.
That's very true. However, his final push...
And if you read the whole speech, it's like I said, if you read the whole speech that Malcolm made, when he said the alternative to liberalism was Elijah Muhammad and divine salvation.
Correct. He didn't have the right answer. He had a proper diagnosis, but he didn't have the cure.
Man, come on, dude.
But all right, man.
The solution Malcolm was selling, as he admonished us and encouraged us to reject liberals and said that conservatives were honest, and you still have Black people who have not updated that analysis and not fully evaluated. He said that in favor of and from the point of view of a cult that killed him just 2 years later. So I think this is a time in history and a position and an ideology that was and should be reevaluated and reassessed.
We agree. So he had the right diagnosis, which is my point on liberalism. He had the wrong cure at the time. But we know his proper cure was revolutionary Pan-Africanism, which he reached at the end. And he says that thing about...
That wasn't what... Whoa.
That's what he arrives at.
Now you're mixing.
No, he says that same thing in the Ballad of the Bullet. Like the thing you're quoting, in Ballad of the Bullet, before he went on his trip to Africa, he's still talking about Black capitalism even. He's still saying it's the myth of the buying power shit, but he also talks about the liberals and the foxes, and he gave the same analogy, and he has the right diagnosis. He's just coming to recognize, well, why do I need to push people to this thing? And so when you're saying claiming liberal principles, for example, people would say that about how you are on guns. You're not like that on guns because of liberalism, even if you're saying you might share some sort of principles with that. You're like that because you're a revolutionary Pan-Africanist. That's the ideology you're drawing from to get to your position. So I'm saying you're not drawing from liberalism, and we don't need to draw from liberalism, and we should not draw from liberalism. But I get your point about impact and what we're dealing with in the community. I don't disagree. Definitely not. We agree on that. That's like a non-starter for me. Like I completely understand, and I know who you're trying to debate, people who understand that. But sometimes when people are talking about liberal with you, they are talking about...
I'd like you to share with me
And we can close it.
And I'm just going to let you say it this time.
Yeah.
What is the definition of liberalism?
Sure. Liberalism is the current project that exists to justify capitalism. It takes civil liberties and fuses them with economic principles.
Where'd you get that from?
Alexander Zevin, Principles or Liberalism at Large, Dominic Lasordo's Liberalism, Malcolm Asada, George Jackson.
But you didn't give a definition of liberalism. You just described how liberalism is
I
utilized.
said, okay, a totalizing fusion of the political principles of like civil liberties and stuff like you're talking about with the economic principles of private property, free market. So
when was it fused?
In the U.S. from the beginning. When Gerald Horne talks about the U.S. revolution, he calls it a counter-revolution because it was a liberal revolution.
The U.S. revolution was a counter-revolution against what?
It was a counter-revolution against the colonial relationship that they had with the UK.
What revolution did it counter? What revolution did the American Revolution counter?
I think Gerald Horne's point is
I want to know your point. I'm talking to you right now.
Well, I'm using his framing. So
okay,
but
you can put it in your but you agree with it and you've internalized it.
Sure.
Everything I know came from my teachers, but I mean, I want to.
Here we go.
What revolution?
I'm explaining. It countered other possibilities. For example, African loyalists who fought with the British. It countered the possibility of them getting their own autonomy.
A counter-revolution. You said that the American Revolution was a counter-revolution. What revolution did the American Revolution counter? Name that revolution. I'm going to unmute you and I want you to name the revolution that the American Revolution countered.
According to Gerald Horne's argument, which you can read, the revolutions it countered were potentially Native Americans who would have made...
Whoa. See, man, listen. You got to slow down. I ain't on your reading level.
I just said
slow down, Josh.
Native
Slow down. Do you know what a counter-revolution is?
Yes.
What is a counter-revolution?
A revolution or something that exists to overturn the order, but doesn't actually create the revolutionary society that people want. It has objectives. It has goals.
Can you name another counter-revolution besides the American Revolution?
I guess if we're using his framing of counter-revolution, any settler colonial society that gets its land by killing and murdering could be a counter-revolution. So the foundation of
revolution is a revolution.
But they'd have to have another power they're fighting, right? Like the British. So they'd have to be someone who got free.
What revolution was taking place in the United States prior to the American Revolution?
Cool. Africans were always in war with the U.S. since we were enslaved. And then Native Americans who were here were always in war. So any native tribe or confederation of tribes that were fighting for their land were fighting
was brought about to end the war or to spark a war?
Well, it's constant warfare. It's the U.S., right? So it was brought about to consolidate.
That's not a counter-revolution.
It did because it overthrew the English colonial order.
That's not a counter-revolution.
Okay, but it's how Gerald Horne defines counter-revolution, which is the context I was using the term.
Well, you probably shouldn't repeat it until you comprehend it.
I did. That's how I just described it.
No, you didn't name the revolution. You just named various events and acts
that it was spawned to counter so that the U.S. could found itself as an empire.
Washington started the American Revolution to fight Africans and First Nation people.
Well, one of the first, yes, actually, that's how he got his stripes. He was a
Why wouldn't he just continue to fight alongside the British?
Because that's not, you're defining why Gerald Horne. Thank you for making the point. Because he needed to overthrow the British rule so that he could establish his colonial power and take on the people who were warring with him.
So his revolution was against the monarchy.
Correct. But also against the natives, and this dual nature.
He was against the natives before he was always against the natives.
But he needed the land and that they had. He wanted to prospect it.
He had the land.
Give a cut to the British. He didn't want to give a cut to the British.
Exactly. So now you're getting closer to what sparked the so-called the American Revolution. And I say that the American Revolution wasn't a revolution at all, but you say it was a counter-revolution.
That is why he calls it a counter-revolution. because it was used to establish an empire. They overthrew the British
used to upend the
and
British Revolution.
Right, and it had liberal principles to it,
was
which
used
made it
to
seem
upend
democratic.
The British Revolution. Okay.
No, it was used to in British rule, right? British domination and Native American insurgency for their protection. Don't call insurgency, protection of their own land, and Africans who were enslaved, Africans who were enslaved and were revolting, and it was presented as a liberal rules, democracy, power to the people kind of thing. That's why he calls it a counter-revolution. In people's minds, in the historical memory that the U.S. projects to the rest of the world, they see it as a democratic thing. That's why he calls it a counter-revolution. And liberalism is known for doing that. That is the political project of liberalism. That counterinsurgency.
Was a liberal.
Yes, he was considered a liberal thinker. He wasn't as good of a writer, so they considered Jefferson and the other more educated
Jeffersonian ideas.
Right.
And so Jeffersonian, even though he articulated freedom and equality,
right, was a
imposed slavery.
Yeah.
So slavery's liberal.
Yes, that in America, in the liberal thought tradition, absolutely.
Because they just weren't lying motherfuckers. Right. They just weren't lying pieces of shit.
Well, you could argue both are the same thing. You could argue liberalism is a product of them being lying motherfuckers. But yes, and that's why John C. Calhoun
they weren't
is a liberal.
Sincerely advancing. They didn't believe that man is free and that man should be. Because forget black people, because black people weren't human.
Right?
Did he give freedom to all white men?
No, right. You're on the money, but their whole thing
I am on the money
on individual liberty is that they're right.
George Washington, the founding pedophiles, the founding rapists, the founding enslavers, the founding fathers were dishonest, insincere. They weren't just lying; they were lying to white people. They were deceiving white people, and they gave the white masses empty promises of freedom in order to become the new monarchs, the oligarch. They went from royal bloodlines to economic bloodlines.
Yes.
They went from inherited through blood, through inheritance, through wealth.
Yes.
And that's why they created what is called the another hierarchy, another group of elites, replace one group of elites, right?
Yeah.
But in order to get the masses of the people to align with them, they had to lie and say they were about freedom and liberty and life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And they fucking lie.
Right.
So what happens is these reactionaries, these conservatives, they come and give the people, just like the Democratic Party, we fight for you. We want you to be free. We're going to give you personal liberty, liberalism. But then when they go to office, they impose reactionary, conservative, capitalist policies. And what I'm saying is there are values, as I'm talking to pro-Black people, and I'm saying, listen, there are certain components of individual autonomy and freedom and mobility and rights and concessions. And people like liberals, you got to give consideration to women, to youth, to the disabled, to the neuroatypical people. Those are liberal ideas, and that pre-exist capitalism, that predate Europe, and that we've abandoned because there's a group of fucking liars who claim they care about individual liberty and autonomy when they were lying in order to justify them taking power and them holding resources. But you're like, no, they weren't lying. They were sincerely about
no. I would just
liberalism and capitalism. And the capitalists have always lied from day one, since the capitalists overthrew the monarchs, since the merchants overthrew the monarchs. They've been lying about freedom and liberty from day one and never gave a fuck about it, because when they take power and they impose policies, it's always enslavement and extraction. And they will look you in your face and say you're free while they work you to death in their minds. And I'm saying, because they have so sullied these concepts. So a woman's right, the liberal view that a woman has a right to choose. And then the party that says, oh, yeah, we care about the woman's right to choose, and we will also bomb women overseas. And so we're like, that's liberal. That it's not. That they are the Democratic Party seeks to maintain the status quo. Maintaining the status quo, conserve the status quo, or they take liberty of people, and then they turn multinational corporations and say the corporation is a person. So the corporation has freedom of speech, has legal and judicial rights. The corporation does.
Mm-hmm.
And so they give freedom and liberty and mobility to corporations. Liberalism is freedom of movement, where money can move across borders independently while humans are locked into places and don't have the resources or the wherewithal or the passport to move. So they take liberalism and apply it to multinational corporations and slave-controlled constitutions, and we're like, liberalism is bad.
Mm-hmm.
When they were fucking lying. You're going to sit here and say George Washington and Thomas Jefferson were liberal.
They were. They're considered liberal thinkers.
They
but
lied. Yes.
I hear you. Yeah,
but they were
lying is not.
lying.
So what Malcolm
they were
is describing,
lying.
right?
They
so
did
Malcolm,
not believe, or did they impose? Did George Washington?
I agree. They're lying.
George Washington, at the same time he said freedom of men, what did he do to a bunch of his soldiers when they said, "Where is our war benefit? Where are our concessions? Where's our land and money?" What did he do to them soldiers?
Didn't give them. Yes, liberalism. Right.
Right?
Yes. Okay.
That's liberalism, because George Washington claimed to be a liberal. So these motherfuckers were honest. And then remember, Malcolm X said that the conservatives were honest. Remember that? He said
he meant they were honest in how they adjudicate white nationalism as their
way
ruling
back
class.
then. Are they honest now?
Well, now
are they honest now?
No, but
were
even
they
the
even
stuff
honest then when Malcolm X said the conservatives were honest? Were they honest?
No, he was talking about they are honest in the context of their racism and their open hatred and animosity toward black and colonized people.
If you go back and look at the average conservative, they weren't even honest about that. They weren't even honest about that. When they said separate but equal, and the black man has his space and I have mine, and they have theirs and we have ours. They lie about that. They lied about being purity, and they lied about separation. Just like
yes, hypocrisy and how they ruled is true.
That was patronizing transgender black prostitutes. They lie about family values and being for the family. They lie about shit. But when they say shit that you want to be true, you'll say they're telling the truth. You acknowledge that they lied. They're fucking liars to the core of their being. But when they talked about liberalism, they were telling the truth. But they lied about every fucking thing else. Okay, Josh. Appreciate it. I got one more caller on the line.
If that's how you want to close it. Peace. Yeah, we can build on in the future. I feel you.
In the future, please call back.
Yep, got you.
Go check with Gerald Horn, because I'm interested in what revolution the American Revolution.
It's in the introduction of the book, but I feel like I explained it. People can check it out. All right, peace.
But you brought it. You can't bring something.
I explained it.
Do your research.
I explained it.
Okay.
You said, why was it a counter-revolution?
I'll look it up myself.
You said, why was it a counter-revolution? I said it projects liberal values. People around the world still in their historical memory see it as something that was about freedom and democracy, something from below. But in fact, other than overthrowing the monarchy, it was to keep Native Americans away from their land that they were getting stolen. And it was to keep Africans enslaved. And that was what it was. That's why it was a counter-revolution. There you go. That's why it's a counter-revolution.
But go off, Josh.
It was for enslavement and colonialism.
Okay,
but
good night, Josh.
It made people think it was for freedom.
Good night, Josh.
Counter-revolution. Good night, yo.
You colonizing the feed. He hung up on. All right, Visions. I appreciate your patience, bro.
Hey, no doubt. No
comment, criticism.
Actually, yeah. I mean, honestly, it kind of ties back into just the last caller. I think that was pretty epic. But I think from that previous discussion of liberalism and how that topic has kind of seeped into, I wouldn't even say seeped into. I think my initial question, actually, I'm gonna refocus it, was about tapping into, or like, what's the best way, would you say, of re-engaging Africans in America, or the masses, throughout so many different avenues and paths of, liberalism or reactionary conservatism that gets picked up, through so many forms and channels of propaganda. I think, like, we have a moment now in history, especially amongst young people, where it's a lot more mainstreamed in a way. There's big pockets where certain things are just more accepted, and that can kind of fall under liberalism. Things you are allowed to say now openly and proudly. I think the Palestinian genocide is something that's kind of becoming a lot more mainstream and easy to talk about. Police brutality, following the George Floyd uprising, that liberalism kind of accepted it to a certain point, but with that there's a lot of distractions and reactionary things within that. So I think you come across whatever it is, whether it's Black capitalism, whether it's reactionary conservative family values, whether it's things that get passed off as solutions. I think as someone with or people that want to have a firm Pan-African leftist socialist outlook, kind of what's the best way to kind of cut through and kind of stay on that path.
Well, when you're facing with an overwhelming entrenched enemy, you have to engage in guerrilla tactics, or what's more formally called asymmetric warfare.
Mm-hmm.
I think the best way to reach people is to take it back to the streets. Because the algorithm in social media is a wasteland. I talked about a couple of weeks ago. There's two ways of controlling people's information. One is through censorship, where you limit what they can hear. You ban books, and you black out websites, and you shut down radio stations, and they were even blowing up radio transmission towers back in the day. So limiting information or restricting information. Another way to do it is by information saturation, where there's so much noise coming from so many different directions at once that the human mind can't really process it all, or make any type of coherent thought based on the myriad of information. If what I think we should start doing is, on a communal, localized level, start having more face-to-face gatherings, lectures, study groups, independent, low-scale concerts. I mean, instead of them obscene ass $6,000 Beyonce tickets, every community that I've lived in has a public performance space. Public libraries have free meeting rooms. There are some places that are mandated that corporate offices in your downtown area has public meeting spaces, and as far as their civic obligation or civic duty, So I think making our information consumption relocalize.
Mm-hmm.
So you distill it down. You can have these platforms, social media, to articulate the message, but then that should be accompanied by an opportunity for people to meet locally and face to face on those ideas.
Right.
I went to Kansas City. There was a progressive movie group,
mm-hmm.
and they basically had old school projector. And it was somebody, they would travel to people's homes and dining rooms, and they would look at movies and have discussions. So I think we can somehow help people. It's not tell people the truth, but help them to develop their filter, because there's a lot of good and quality information out there, but there's also a lot of bullshit you have to sift through. So you have to also be conscious about your own media diet and what you share. Because I see a lot of people that are really smart and really clear, and they'll share, like, I have a good friend, really brilliant dude. He just shared a link from Jordan Peterson. And I'm like, why would you share this bullshit? And he was like, oh, it is shit and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, don't assume that everybody knows this is a racist idiot. And maybe you should just give a couple of sentences saying this, what's wrong with it, and what to look for. Because some people might just see it as you endorsing him. Some people might just look at the fact, hey, this brother shared it, and so he's sharing Jordan Peterson. So at least give a sentence or two. So we can curate our online spaces and make sure we meet our obligation to our larger online community by, even if we're sharing some nonsense, we understand and articulate what's good, what's bad, and then localizing. community theater, local lectures, book signings, and there are several spaces where you don't even need any money. You just need to go and sign up to get on the schedule. We had a whole progressive years back called Interesting Thoughts, and we brought out Anthony Browder to talk about his archaeological digs in Kemet. We had a Gil Scott Heron birthday celebration, Ain't Nobody's Fool Day, we did for several years. And it was just local artists coming out, performing Gil Scott Heron's work or doing work inspired by Gil Scott Heron's work. So it wasn't just about study, research, book clubs and stuff. It was also about entertaining ourselves, but having our revolutionary culture and ideology saturating our entertainment and leisure time as well.
Her, absolutely. Yeah, no, appreciate it. Just wanted to tap in and get that question answered and think about alternative ways to combat like you said, the oversaturation. I think that's critical because it's very hard to filter it out, even if you have developed that critical thought. Never know what you're taking in and what you're putting out.
Yeah, this is the complex, like the information superhighway.
Yeah.
People it's just like a physical highway. You have to be very mindful as you cross. You have to look both ways and evaluate the distance and what it is. So yeah, I think people should be as mindful and critical of their intellectual diet as they are their physical diet. They should refine and make sure that they get the highest quality, most nourishing data, information, research, articles, as they could. But it's so disheartening. I see a lot of times people not only buying into but regurgitating right-wing reactionary content online, and then I see it in the community. I go places in the community and people are regurgitating and repeating right-wing reactionary conspiratorial nonsense in the community.
Yeah, see it every day.
Yeah, I see posters up on the bus stops.
Yeah,
literally Pizzagate, fucking what they call that shit? What they call QAnon shit.
Oh, QAnon, yeah, Pizzagate.
QAnon is all over the hood here. Yep. I don't go amongst or a public gathering where somebody doesn't regurgitate some QAnon delusions and nonsense. And what's so sad about that, there are real atrocities and abuses going on that they are totally blind to because they're looking at falsehoods and delusions.
Yeah, sensationalized, I guess, things that can tap into distrust of celebrity or government officials, but there are a lot more things that are actually directly impacting us. But I think it's harder for, the general public, I think, to kind of be aware or alert of that. Like it's more devastating to them or devastating to us to like have to deal with, I guess the complete reality, and it's easier to tap in with the delusions and the fairy tale.
Well, they're more malleable. You can if you're dealing with make believe, you can shape it in any way you want. So it's more malleable. Where dealing with facts and concrete analysis often forces the person who adheres to them to make changes. Whereas if you're dealing with make believe, you can change the data to suit yourself, as opposed to changing your own behavior to suit the facts on the ground.
100%, absolutely. I agree with you. Well, thanks for answering my question.
Thanks for waiting, man. I know you held on, so
appreciate the show as always.
All right, bro.
All right, peace.
All right, y'all. I'm gonna go through these questions quick, fast. Some of the type. Why are we stuck in the 20s definitions when we should understand that language is always evolving? I agree. Language meaning it does evolve, but a lot of times you have to know the origins to understand where it evolved from. Because if you only see where it is presently and don't understand where it came from, it can just be as confusing as not knowing it at all. No, I disagree. A brand Nubian, you thought you had a sweet Vic nightstick. You just don't understand the rules, the black codes. You can say shit that's wrong as long as it's in a funky song. So if you put it in a funky rhyme or put it to a nice beat, you can get away with it. So punks jump up to get beat down. Shout out to brand Nubian. Let's see. I can't get into Marx and Hegel. That's a lot. I'll just say this. It is a symbiosis. The human intellect evolved from the environment, and then the human intellect began to shape the environment. So it's not an either or separate. It is a symbiosis that can't really be separated. But that's a good concept. I wish I had more time to get into. So liberalism is the pretty packaging that didn't really originate from the U.S. but got co-opted by capitalism and corrupted. Yeah, it's funny how they'll be like, George Washington and these guys were fake. They didn't believe in anything they said. They lied. But they told the truth about this, but everything else they lied about. But again, I think that I understand Black people's aversion to liberalism. There are even Black people out here, democracy and these certain concepts that Europe has co-opted, that didn't come from Europe, that they have co-opted. Even the women's rights and women's liberation. And if you look at the modern feminist movement, that's a bunch of racist, capitalist, affluent white women. And the brothers out here is like, I hate feminism, and they hate feminists and they hate that stuff that it just ruined the Black family. So we can't allow our oppressors to define our reality, really, let alone corrupt things that could be of use and values and principles. Yeah, but the thing about the British abolishing slavery, that's another thing to get into, because that's a whole nother thing to get into with white folks' internal conflicts, where we think, oh, one white people want to do a good thing and another group of white people want to do a bad thing, well, and we pick sides between the two of them. But yeah, the British industrial economy, and not you notice that when white people were fighting over slavery, the whites to adopt the first industrial revolution and the agrarian society. So the old agrarian economy versus the new industrial economy. And at the same time, white people wanted to abolish slavery. They took a bunch of white people and put a bunch of white kids in mines, and go look at the sweatshops. Go look at early industrial labor. So they just redefined what it meant to be enslaved. They were like, okay, we do serfs and peasants were enslaved. And then they come up with chattel slavery in the colonial period and during their colonial expansion. And then industrial revolution, they come up with wage slaves and people literally being ground to death in the looms, the giant looms, and the industrial infrastructure and the mines and the oil fields to full. So it's weird to be talking about the British wanted to free people. They just wanted them to have a modernized form of labor. They all exploit labor. Hyper exploitation of labor and concentration and theft of wealth. And the British commoners were the most pitiful group of people, malnourished, starved to death, and worked to death. And these are the liberators are working their own people to death. So yes, they were going to say, hey, we're going to adopt this industrial production in this new industrial age. And the agrarian people are like, this agrarian society is working for us. We're rich under the old system. But I feel you. I understand. Yes. So it's just it. But anyway, I appreciate the conflict even as much as I appreciate the cooperation. I think, iron sharpens iron. I think that we do ourselves a disservice to us, and I think that ideas of personal liberty, personal autonomy, rights for groups, and people. Just because the Democrats get up here and say we care about women's rights, we care about minority rights, we care about that, but there is a corrupt party that fucking lies, that's been in several opportunities to really act on its liberal positions, but they always put their conservative economic interest well above, but welfare, housing for the people, social welfare, free lunch, and all these so-called liberal ideas. It worries me that we start to turn our back on the social safety net, welfare, and things of that nature, because the party that claims to be in favor of that is so illegitimate and is so corrupt that we abandon everything it claims to stand for, as opposed to just going against what it actually stands for. But that's a debate I guess we're going to have to continue to have. Be nicer. I'm not going to be able to do shit. Be nicer. Somebody trying to railroad me and I'm supposed to be nice about it. I ain't built that way. Anyway, thanks for tuning in to the BroDiallo broadcast. Thank you for your support, ongoing engagement. And even if we have deep conflicts, as long as we all on the same mission and striving for the same ultimate goal, we are still allies. And what did Nas say? The best are supposed to clash at the top. So without conflict, internal conflict, we can have internal differences and internal conflicts without being disruptive or destructive. So it's all gravy, y'all. Josh is still cool with me. Anyway, till next Monday, BroDiallo Show. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for your contributions, for those who have made them. Appreciated it. I'll see you next Monday.